If you know the name Capcom, you know that Capcom monopolised the gaming markets with arcade and console releases throughout 45 years of their career, seeing a slew of games such as Commando, Megaman, Ghosts and Goblins and Street Fighter, which for today's topic we are going to dive deep into the first foray of something that started the humble beginnings of fighting games and became a legacy in its own right. Street Fighter is an arcade fighting game developed and published by Capcom in 1987. It is the first competitive fighting game in existence. The arcade itself uses two buttons, one for punch and one for kick, but these buttons were unconventional because the buttons utilised rubber pads that players would hit depending on how hard they would hit, and they would either perform light, medium and heavy attacks. However, players themselves would tire themselves using these, and not only that, but they would also require maintenance should they break. So Capcom looked and said fuck that noise and replaced them for the current setup being the alternate 6 button that is the standard for majority of Capcom fighters to this day. The arcade itself uses a Motorola 68000, two Zilog Z80 sound co-processors alongside with the sound chips like the Yamaha YM2151FM and two Oki MSM 5205 sound chips. The sound is in stereo and the screen is displayed at a resolution of 384 by 224 running at 60 Hz. The game itself also appeared on the TurboGrafx CD known as Fighting Street in North America in 1989 and followed by a bunch of ports for microcomputers. But you know, saying that, is the game really that bad? How bad could it be? Let's find out. So yeah, I don't have access to these arcade cabinets because they are quite a rarity, and any that do exist are probably not over here in the UK. They're still probably in Japan. So this means we're going to resort to using the Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection. Let's go. So, right off the bat, you only get 2 characters in this game, being Ryu and Ken. They both play the same, but the difference is aesthetic. But depending on which player you are, you get only 2 choices. Player 1 is Ryu, whereas player 2 is Ken. And if you're expecting to play your main from any other Street Fighter games, in this game particularly, that's not gonna happen. Sorry Chun-Li fans. Anyway, like any other Street Fighter games, it utilises 6 buttons, 3 for punch and 3 for kick, ranging from light, medium and heavy strength. The game has 3 special techniques for both Ryu and Ken, being Psycho Fire, Dragon Punch and Hurricane Kick. And all of these can be done using motion inputs like you would be familiar with on future versions of Street Fighter. Being the first of its series, graphically it is really jittery and kind of unappealing to my eyes. Most people say, I'm sure this can be forgiven. Well, sadly, I can't really forgive this because it's not that easy on my eyes, especially with the animation, which lacks a lot in movement and makes the gameplay itself choppy. And as for the colours, well, it doesn't really pop out with vibrancy as akin to future Capcom fighting games. The gameplay itself can be either done via single player or 1v1. So considering that the main focus is going to be mostly on single player, let me go through this. In single player, you go for a series of matches and must knock your opponent out in less than 30 seconds. You must win 2 rounds in order to progress your gameplay onto the next battle. You have 8 computer enemies ranging from countries such as England, USA, Thailand and China. Also in this game, you are treated with mini games that involve breaking shit. Sorry guys, no car this time. And these mini games comes around after winning 2 matches per opponent, and they are usually consisting of smashing wooden boards or karate chopping blocks or slabs. When upon winning or losing, you are granted to these cutscenes with the most muffled sounds you'll ever hear. Trust me, you'll be sick of hearing these. And speaking of sounds, the music is really, well, experimental to say in the least. You can hear the Yamaha and Oki sound chips in effect, but in that same vein, it's really awful sounding because it sounds like a Yamaha keyboard being fucked. That is the only way I can describe it. Here's a few examples. Now, before I end this, I can understand that this was the first of its kind, and especially with it being in the 80s, sadly I can't say this game is top-notch arcade and edge-of-your-seat action, especially with the gameplay being choppy and somewhat unplayable to a degree. I mean, I almost completed this and got a high score, but then I was kind of gotten taken out by Cigar, and honestly I just kind of gave up and just didn't want to do this any longer. The game is not really that great, especially with the caveats that I mentioned. I mean, if one must play it as a curiosity, I would say go for it, but it's not really a groundbreaking game. But for it to start something completely revolutionary throughout the 90s and capitalized that market, I say to an extent we should actually preserve this history and make it known to be a footnote, even if the game is terrible. Oh, and by the way, is the game any good? No, it's not. Anyway, that does it for now. Remember to like, comment and subscribe if you so choose to. I've been Saku, fuck off.